Andy Lake, thank you very much for being with us. We're going to explore your article, The Emerging Social Infrastructure of Work and Why the Workplace Industry Needs to Think Outside Its Ever-Shrinking Boxes. Sounds quite a long title, Andy, but without getting into too much detail, tell us what the article is about and the motivation for writing it.
Well, I wrote it because we're at such an interesting time now with ways of working changing so much during the lockdown for so many people. And there's been a lot of very interesting ideas coming out and a lot of interesting data as well. But on the other hand, I was getting a bit depressed by an emerging consensus around the hybrid workplace and the new normal and so forth. And people talking about rotas for getting people to come into the workplace 2 days a week, or who's in on Monday, who's in on Tuesday. And I kind of felt that edging towards something which is a bit like a reheated 1990s teleworking program, a bit like the American government program, the highly bureaucratic, and that the key thing that's missing is about the transformation possibilities for making work better and more dynamic and so on. So what the article's about really is looking at what is different now and what are the kind of trends which make a difference, and how the workplace industry, instead of going along with this kind of hybrid working cozy concept, can really help to transform how work fits into society.
Yeah, and you've had, I mean, looking at the bio alone, it's amazing. You've been at this for 25 years. I mean, you're so qualified to talk about where we've come from, where we are now, where we're going with this subject. Could you pick a few themes which you cover in your article, which you think are particularly sort of trending and resonant now, which readers will really get a lot out of covering off with you?
I think one of the main things I want to draw people's attention to is the importance of rethinking assumptions around the separation of work from the rest of life, and what that will mean in practice, both for the collective workplace, which I think will inevitably shrink, and what it means for all the other places where people work. And then again, thinking about how, with the emerging technologies and other social changes, how work can be different, operating in a different way, let's say much more dynamic. So we want to avoid things like moving a traditional stultifying meetings culture into the online space, which we've seen happening a lot, and thinking, well, how can we actually make work different?
Yeah, it's full of little nuggets. I would commend anybody who's writing an essay on the future of workplace to just basically sort of download the PDF and use it as a sort of, tick box. I covered those points off. It was great. There was one particular point. I'm just going to use this to illustrate this for our readers. One particular point I enjoyed was this one about focus and share, and the fact that, guys my age, we grew up, we did focused work, we prepared something, we shared it, and that's how we worked, right? We did concentrated work, then we collaborated. And yet you pick out so rightly how, let's call them a younger generation, are building up with all these digitally native tools, such as Google Sheets, Docs, etc., where they're actually literally working on things collaboratively in real time. And that has created a completely different dynamic about working at home, because actually home working is online, very collaboratively, still actually working with people over the internet. Whereas my concept of work is very much go home, study, do stuff, take it to the office. I mean, any thoughts about that?
Yes, I think you're absolutely right in the way this is changing. And I think people of our generation have been accustomed to, you do your focus work, you write something, you then share it with somebody else by email or in a meeting, and then you come to a decision, you write something else and so on. Whereas in the kind of virtualized digital space, there's much more opportunity to work with live data, to work together, as you said. And I think the nature of focus and collaboration are changing. And I think one of the things that's wrong with the current debate is thinking about, the office has got to be an event space. This is where we go to collaborate. And we already know from various studies that there can be a lack of focus space. But it's also missing the mark about what you're doing at home. So I think we can start thinking in terms of like there's solo focus, which is quite necessary at times, joint focus, in which people may be in different places or the same place.
Joint focus, I like that.
And then things which are much more collaborative and interactive in terms of sort of wanting to generate new ideas or share some learning and things like that.
So Andy, we commend your article to our readers because I think of its just breadth of what it covers. But in terms of learning outcomes, after reading your piece, what do you hope the readers take away from it?
I think one of the main things is when it comes to think about the workplace, to think about the extended workplace. And I think also because the words social infrastructure are in there, this is a term used in sociology a bit, and they're thinking about, libraries and hospitals and public places, usually provided by the state. And they skip out work. They have the same kind of assumptions that work is somewhere else. So I think, how is work embedded in the social infrastructure that we use in public places? How can we revitalize the high street and so forth? How can we create local working? So it's really about extending thinking into all these directions.
Yeah, your article covers so many things, and it also gets into that whole town and country planning area, which I have to say is like a whole new article unto itself. So looking forward to that one. But in the meantime, thank you so much for your article, and all the best with your work carrying on. And we hope to have you on Work and Place again.
Thank you very much, Marcus.
Thank you.